Please welcome A Better Chicago's founder and CEO, Liam Krehbiel.
Good afternoon, welcome, and thank you for being at A Better Chicago's first Education Summit. We really appreciate it. As you just heard, I'm Liam Krehbiel. I'm the founder and CEO of A Better Chicago, and I'm proud here to spend a few minutes with you to kick off today's event by covering who A Better Chicago is, why we're here, and what we want to cover in today's summit. So first, a little bit about A Better Chicago. We're a nonprofit venture philanthropy fund that I founded in 2010, and our mission is to dramatically improve educational outcomes for Chicago's low-income youth by finding, investing, and scaling up our region's most effective and innovative nonprofit organizations. In our first 5.5 years, we built our founding board, leadership council, and staff. We raised over $25 million and built pro bono partnerships with the leading advisory firms here in town that provide pro bono support to our grantees. And most importantly, we constructed a portfolio of 13 high-performing nonprofit organizations working along the full kindergarten through college continuum that are collectively serving over 30,000 youth a year. So that's a little bit about A Better Chicago. We've done a benefit in the past. So in the past, our big annual event was a benefit, and it was fun, and we got good feedback about it, and the cocktails are great. But we thought there was maybe an opportunity to do a different type of event, one that was a little more intimate, with no media, and one where we could bring together Chicago's business, philanthropic, civic, and academic leaders to really dig into some important topics around education and philanthropy, and ultimately accelerate the change we all want to see in our society, and ultimately deliver a world-class education to every Chicagoan. And so this is our first run through this, and so bear with us as we go through our first year. We would love to get your feedback on how it goes. But that leads into why we're here. And the reason that we're here is because education is more important than ever. I think I first really embraced that and started appreciating the importance of education when I was in high school. I went to a prep school out east, and I was fortunate to volunteer at a nearby elementary school in a low-income community, and I worked with third graders on their math and reading. And one day it occurred to me when I was working with this really great third grader, a really delightful, bright, energetic, curious child, that he was really struggling with his math. And so I started to calibrate about, where was I in third grade with math versus where this student was. And third grade, it was something about long division and fractions and all that kind of fun stuff. But the student I was working with was struggling with just really basic arithmetic. And it just hit me that this great, delightful, curious kid, through no fault of his own, was already years behind where he should be. And then it really hit me that he was never really going to catch up, that the gap between where he could be and should be versus where he was just going to grow over time. And I think in my heart that day, I realized that where you grow up, what zip code you're born into, has so much to determine about where you're ultimately going to end up in life. And I didn't have any data to support that. I just kind of knew in my heart that this kid was just on a vastly different trajectory than me. And that just felt like a wrong that I wanted to do something about. But what I didn't have at the time was the hard data to support that belief. But now we do have that data. And if you look across a wide spectrum of life outcomes, it's shocking to see the impact that education has on people's lives. And so what we've done is we've pulled together some data to share with you tonight, looking at high school dropouts versus high school graduates, 2-year degrees and 4-year degrees. So lifetime earnings, right? We talk a lot about income inequality in this country as being a really important issue. Well, how do you solve that? Education. Unemployment, same thing. How do you solve unemployment in our country? As well as underemployment in our country, education. Poverty. There's a war. We've talked about the war on poverty going on for 50 plus years now. But how do you really get to the root of poverty? It's education. Life expectancy. Do you want to live an extra decade? It's through education. Voting. We talk about the importance of having a robust democratic system. If we want to live in a democratic society, we need to have an engaged citizenship. How do you create a more engaged citizenship? Through education. Volunteerism. This is the core of our society. We don't outsource everything to the government. We take personal responsibility for being engaged citizens, for personally getting involved to making our country a better place. How do you create a more engaged citizenship? Education. And incarceration, which is a national issue, but is very much also a Chicago issue. And unfortunately, just yesterday, I was catching up with one of our grantee organizations and learned about a high school freshman who was murdered over the weekend. This was a great student, B average, was scheduled to go downstate and participate in the state track tournament. And now she's no longer with us. And unfortunately, this is one of many, many stories that we're gonna hear over the coming months. And we talk a lot about what can we do to solve this problem. And this is a complicated problem. I'm not saying that there's one silver bullet to it, but if there's something at the core of it that we can do, if there's one thing, among other things, but there's one thing worth investing in, not just to solve all their problems we have in our society, but to get this problem, which I know that every single parent in this room is thinking about for their own kids, it's education. And so given the importance of education, you'd hope that we were doing a little bit better than we were in terms of high school and college graduation rates. But the reality is, as of a recent study that was done by the University of Chicago, for every 100 students that enter 9th grade at Chicago public schools, and this is across all high schools, including our magnet and selective enrollment schools, for every 100 students that enters 9th grade, only 14 are graduating from a four-year university by the age of 25. And if you think about where our world is going in terms of what employers are requiring from the workforce, there's just a huge misalignment between where our education system is and where it needs to get to. And in fairness, and I think this is one of the things that our keynote is going to talk about, it's not just about getting any old college degree, right? It's about getting the right college degree that's aligned with where the world is going, as well as what that student is good at, what that student is interested in. So it's a more complex topic than just, did you get a college degree or not? But at the root of it is, we have to improve the quality of our education system. And it is true that we are making progress. So just in the last 10 years, there's been some really great progress to share. Let's start with, on the left, high school graduation. 10 years ago, we had a high school graduation rate here in CPS of 53%. In less than one decade, it's gone up to 70%. And that's for a school system of over 400,000 students. So that's an enormous amount of progress in less than 10 years. On the right, we have our four-year college graduation rate. University of Chicago did a report in 2006 that said, again, that only 8% of 9th graders were graduating from college, from a four-year college by the age of 25. Another study was done in 2014 and said it was at 14%. You can cut the data a slightly different way. It gets up to 17%. But still, if you think about where we are as a society, where we're headed, and you think about what our students are going to need, the skills they're going to need to be successful, yes, we're making progress, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. There's a long way to go. And the reality is, too, is that it's not just as simple, if it were simple, about trying to educate a gigantic group of people, right, and get them through high school and college, right? We're also facing a significant number of additional challenges that go beyond just education. And these are very, very real challenges that everybody here in Chicago is experiencing in one way, shape, or form. So our work is cut out for us, but that doesn't change the fact that education is more important than ever. Maybe the finer point to put it on is it's worth fighting for, right? Despite all the challenges we're having here in Chicago and nationally, it's more important than ever, and it's worth fighting for. All right, so our objectives for today. One is to build knowledge. What we need to do here, what we're trying to accomplish, is to really mobilize Chicago's philanthropic sector to be a catalyst for change. In order to do that, we all need to collectively continue to get smarter and smarter about what are the most effective strategies and tools out there that we can invest in to move the needle. Second is bridging connections. I think we all have to really embrace that no one funder, just like no one nonprofit, is going to be able to move the needle by themselves. It's going to take a collaborative effort. And so part of the objective for today is bridging those connections between the people here in this room. And three is to inspire action. I know that I've been to my fair share of conferences where you kind of shuffle in, some light conversation, a few presentations, you kind of shuffle out, and then it's kind of back to normal. And so what I'd challenge all of you to think about today is, what are you going to do differently as a result of being here today? What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to change as a result of what you learned and who you met today? That's my challenge to you. So we have a great lineup planned. Kicking off, and I'll introduce them here in a minute, with Sir Ken Robinson. We asked him to talk about what does a great education look like. Right? He works with people in governments, companies all around the world. What does a great education look like? What should we be aiming for? We're going to break it out into 2 different sessions at 3 o'clock and at 4 o'clock. Really, really excited about the quality of the speakers. And again, thank you to all the speakers who've flown in from all over the country to be part of this. So each of you will choose to attend one of these sessions at 3 o'clock and again at 4 o'clock. And then we're going to have Mayor Rahm Emanuel join us at the end to close out the day and talk more about what he's seeing and experiencing here in Chicago, what are our challenges, but where are our opportunities, and the importance of public-private partnerships. So that's our day. I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, starting with our presenting sponsor, Guggenheim, and our event sponsors, Boeing, Krehbiel, GCM Grosvenor, Gem Realty Capital, Goldman Sachs, Heidrick & Struggles, Latham Watkins, and Northern Trust. Without their support, this day would not be possible. So let's give them a big round of applause. I also insisted that this slide get added to it. I want to give a shout out to my team, my colleagues at Better Chicago. We're a small but mighty team, and without their incredible hard work and effort, this day would also not be possible. Let's give them a round of applause as well. All right, so let's talk about Sir Ken. When we were re-envisioning this day, and we said, all right, less cocktails, more content, great content, more thought leadership. We started scouring the internet to find who is the right person that's going to be kind of our anchor for this day that we can really get excited about, that's going to get you excited. And so we started talking about somebody who is a globally recognized international leader, really has deep expertise in education, maybe has an English accent, maybe has elbow patches. You started to kind of like create a vision in your mind, and sure enough, we were fortunate to see one of Ken's TED Talks. And if you haven't had a chance yet to see it, I highly encourage you to carve out 18 minutes of your day to view it. It's incredibly motivating and inspiring. And as we learn more about Ken, his background, his passions, what he's focused on, it just was kind of like a no-brainer that this was the guy that we wanted to have in here as our keynote. And so just to very briefly give you a little bit of an introduction for those who don't know him, he's an internationally recognized leader in education, innovation, and creativity. He was a professor of education at the University of Warwick for 12 years. And then after he wrapped that up, he now advises governments, nonprofits, and companies around the world on their education strategy. He is a New York Times best-selling author. And that TED Talk I mentioned to you is the most watched TED Talk in the history of TED. So without further ado, it is my great, great honor to introduce Sir Ken Robinson.